Impact leadership. What does it mean to wake up each day knowing your work, effort, and passion is being transformed into creating change that makes a difference in your business, organization, community, and your own life experience? And it can be hard to stay on track when at times the winds do not blow in your direction. But you persevere, one step forward at a time, creating something better. This is fulfillment in action. And this is Passion for Impact. Educating, empowering, and elevating social consciousness in people, business, and teams, one inspiring conversation at a time. Passion for Impact is brought to you by Rock Your Leadership. We train leaders on how to grow success, drive change, and not burn out. Visit passionigniter.ca for more details.
This is the Passion for Impact podcast with speaker, trainer, and socially conscious advocate Tricia Miltimore.
This is going to be a great conversation. Here with us today is Jill Earthy. She's the CEO of InBC, a newly formed provincial crown corporation with a $500 million strategic investment fund. With a triple bottom line mandate, InBC is committed to investing with an inclusive lens focused on realizing environmental, social, and financial returns. Love that. Jill was previously the CEO of WeBC, formerly Women's Enterprise Center, a nonprofit organization supporting women entrepreneurs with loans, education, mentorship. I've been involved with that. It's fantastic. And advisory services across BC. Jill has served in senior leadership roles at Female Funders, FrontFundr, Futurpreneur, and The Forum, all with a focus on supporting entrepreneurs, including empowering more diverse investors. She currently serves on the national boards of Sustainable Development Technology Canada and The Forum. She's very busy. Jill is an active mentor and community contributor. She has been well recognized for her accomplishments, including by Business in Vancouver as an influential woman in business and by WXN as one of the top 100 most powerful women in Canada in 2019. Jill, you are busy. You are here. I am so grateful. Thanks for joining in on Passion for Impact.
Tricia, it's so amazing to be here. Thank you for having me.
We've known each other for quite a few years now, kind of just passing in different events and whatnot, but I've been certainly following what you do online. And you know what I love about the work that you do is it consistently, it feels at least, that you are very purpose driven. And so I would love, and I think this is going to be so powerful, no pressure at all, because it's really all about your story, which is always the most insightful, impactful things. I would love to know how this all started for you. Like, how did you get into a leadership role? Or maybe we can go back to your first leadership role. And how did you choose or decide, or what was that moment like, I can have purpose and make big impact through leadership?
Yeah, that's a meaty question. And it's always interesting to reflect back, right, on the journey. Yeah. And you know, what's interesting, I think for me, it's been all about having champions and people around me who've seen things that I haven't necessarily seen in the moment. And I think that started, fortunately, early on. I was a camp counselor in my teenage years and ended up being one of the youngest camp counselors, where you're empowered to take care of somebody else's kids. And of course, in those days, we didn't have the technology that we have now. So there was a tremendous amount of responsibility given to me early on. And so I think because of that, you're like, oh, wow, okay, somebody thinks I can do it. I guess I can do it. So I've always been given opportunities like that throughout my career. And I've also, I think, just as even more importantly, tried to give others those opportunities. And, your question around when did I realize that I could kind of use some of my, I never considered myself a leader. I think that was the other thing, is that, kind of just, you just do what's right in the moment and for the people around you. And that just naturally, I think, I don't know, it seemed to work for me. But I think one of the pivotal moments for me, I did do my MBA with a focus in entrepreneurship, and coming out of that was recruited into the banking industry. And I quickly realized that I did not want to work. No offense. I think there's a lot of great opportunities there, but I knew for me, the type of influence and impact that I wanted to have and the changes I wanted to make, I wasn't going to be able to see for some time if I went down a traditional corporate pathway. And so, again, took a chance and went and worked with an entrepreneurial couple who, took me under the wing, and they really became champions for me. And I think from there, I just taking that risk really made me realize that you can take risks, you can find what you need, and recognizing not everybody can always take risks in the moment. There's lots of factors to consider. But I think if you are open to new opportunities, they surprisingly do appear, right? And if you are talking to people around you and you're sort of manifesting what you think is important to you, things can happen. And I've been so fortunate throughout my career where I think I've only actually applied for one job in my whole career, but things just happen. And these opportunities arise, but I'm open to them, right? So then I'm able to consider them and go, okay, yeah. But one other funny sort of thing is I realized when I did my MBA, of course, I took finance courses and I took accounting, and I was like, well, I wasn't super interested because I was taught it was all focused on financial returns. It was all focused on profit and how much money you can make. And that didn't resonate with me and my values at all. So I kind of discounted that. And so it's interesting now, full circle, when I look at my roles and the different pieces that I've picked up along the way, the different sort of tools in my toolkit, and now, leading this $500 million, impact investment fund, and recognizing finally, unfortunately, 20 years later, that you can, proceed with purpose, have a positive social and environmental impact, which is more important than ever these days, and realize financial returns that are for broader purpose. I think that's so powerful. So so that's sort of a snapshot, but it's been an amazing journey, right? Just picking up different tools and opportunities along the way. And now I feel so honored to now be, in a position where I really feel I can affect some positive change and influence real systemic change.
Wow. That is powerful. That is amazing. That must feel really good. Really good.
Yeah. And exciting. It feels good. It feels good, but also scary, but that's a good thing too.
Right? When it feels exciting and scary at the same time, you're probably on the right path.
Yeah.
So in my coaching practice, a lot of times I'm working with men or women who are in pivotal kind of points in their careers where they are open to opportunities and they are paralyzed with making the right decision. So as I'm sure many opportunities came your way, like you were saying, how did you know what the right decision was? Because sometimes something can check all the boxes and be really exciting and just maybe not feel right in your gut. Or how did you manage that process?
For sure. I was fortunate. I was given some good advice early on during one of my first transitions. I was leaving what in essence was my dream job after 5 years at the Forum. And that was a really hard decision for me. And so there was sort of the deciding to make a change is one part of the decision, right? And then, as you said, identifying what is the next best opportunity. And so some advice that was given to me was it's a simple Excel spreadsheet. Many of you probably have done this, but in the left-hand column, just sit down in a quiet place with your favorite beverage and just brainstorm all the things that are super important to you. So that could be either leadership opportunities. It should be your minimum salary requirements, the type of work environment you want, the types of challenges. Do you want travel? Do you want, what types of things just are really important? It can be a list of, it could be 5 or 25 things. And then prioritize those. What are the non-negotiable? Do you want work-life balance? Do you want the flexibility to work from home? What are those things that are just non-negotiable, and try to get it down to 3 to 5. And then across the top of it is really, because nowadays too, it's not apples to apples, right? Every opportunity is so different, whether you're choosing to do consulting or to take a job at a big firm or a small company or go to a startup, right? Or be a creative, all these different things. But along the top, it's so interesting when you look at the criteria that you've set and you see where it lines up and where the intersections are. And it's not always what you think it's going to be, because I think in our heads, right? And it's so nice to feel wanted and get pulled into a certain direction, but sometimes that clouds our judgment around, as you said, what's really important and rooted in our values and our passions and our gut. And so having that sort of simple framework was always really helpful for me, because the role or the opportunity that I thought I was leaning towards, when I looked at that and went, wow, that only hits actually 3 of my 5 non-negotiables. But this other one that I hadn't really fully explored actually hits 4 or 5. So I need to dig into that more, because it's just a reframing. And I've always found that helpful. And then the other thing I've always found helpful too is asking the people around you. And the key indicator is always when somebody says, when I start talking about an opportunity and they're like, wow, you just lit up talking about this. Like this is something, there's some fire within you that is coming through and you need to think about this more. And, just how our bodies and how we react to things, tells a lot, and we don't always see that for ourselves. So I think having others around us and just talking about these opportunities and have others reflect back to us, how we're responding and reacting to different things.
Isn't that true? We definitely have a brain in our gut in some ways.
Yes.
You can definitely feel it there first.
Absolutely.
Some good insights there, some good tips. So have you ever, if you don't mind me asking, have you ever been in a situation where you said yes to something because you thought in the moment that was a good move and then realized quickly down that path that no, this wasn't in alignment? And how did you manage, because there's a lot of feelings around that. How did you manage that process?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's happened a couple of times. And I think when I reflect back to, it's happened when I haven't taken the time up front to really consider the broader kind of impacts of the role or opportunity. So I think I think you can also apply that too, right? To being in a job and then having that, I kind of describe it as, and others do too, but that sort of Sunday night feeling, right? That dread, like something starts to creep into your body mid-afternoon on Sunday as you prepare for the week. And it builds over time too. And you have to listen to that. If something is not feeling great about where you're going to spend your time, however your work week is structured, but then you have to listen to that. And sometimes it takes months and sometimes it takes years, but you really like honing in on that. And I feel like that's almost a muscle I've practiced over time, but for better or for worse. But I think that's really important, right? Just listening to that and just unpacking it and just saying, why am I feeling this way? What is it? Am I not organized for the week? Or why am I not enjoying this work anymore? Is it the work environment? Is it my schedule? And just, rethinking that. And it's being okay. I think that's the other thing. And I try to teach my kids this, that it's okay to make a change. Like people are counting on you for things. But it's better to have upfront conversations and communicate. Like, I'm not sure this is working anymore. Can we figure out a transition plan? I've been really fortunate. I've done a lot of transitions, but they've all been really positive because we've had upfront conversations. We've made a plan and we've communicated clearly. And that makes all the difference.
There's something also about, I remember back in the day, I had a great government job. And so for most people, it's like, wow, this is fantastic. You got this government job. Of course, it felt like prison to me, but as an entrepreneur. But I remember going to the bathroom one day and spending a lot of extra time sitting on the toilet. And then in my world now, it's the P test. Now, obviously working from home, it's a little bit different. But it's like if you just sitting too long in certain places and you're just stalling because it's not really, it's draining you versus driving you. And then I think that's an important awareness to have and to make some change from that. So
totally.
Good tips. So if you don't mind us going down this path a little bit, it's so inspiring to see a woman taking on, large leadership roles and making impact, and you're also a parent and a partner, and you have, lots of other, like we all do, so many variables in your life. So as the kids were younger, and obviously I have the 4 kids, so I'm always curious about this. And I know a lot of people listening are curious. How did you manage all these transitions and choices and whatnot amongst, parenting and all those other roles?
Yeah, I think there's probably 2 key things to that. And I think it is an important conversation to have. But I look at one, I've loved my work. I've always been so fortunate to do work that I was deeply passionate about. So one that makes it much easier when you are, because time is valuable and you're choosing, if you have to work, you want it to be meaningful and aligned with your values because it's time away from your family. And I think the other part is I've been fortunate that my partner has been so he's done a lot of the home stuff. And, I've always had jobs too, where I was in flexible roles. So it was okay. And I tried certainly as a leader to say, hey, I'm leaving a bit early today because I'm going to pick up my kids. And because I want to mirror that for others. But, I think it is looking at the partnership and depending on your situation and your resources. But my husband would be home early and manage a lot of the at-home stuff, and including cooking, which took time. It was not all perfect, and it did not happen right away, but over time. And, that was really amazing because it allowed me the flexibility. I always did the morning stuff, and then he did the afternoon stuff. And then I would always make sure that I was at all the critical, the important things, and had lots of quality time with my kids. But it did allow me a bit more flexibility. And I was always grateful for that, both with the people I worked with and the home side. Was it messy? Absolutely. Absolutely messy, right? But and things change all the time, and you have to rethink things, but it's just, understanding. And that's the hardest part sometimes, is understanding and recognizing what you need, what kind of support you need, and where the gaps are. And having a great neighborhood and community is also really important, because I relied on a lot, and tried to pay it forward too, but relied a lot on our neighbors as well for sharing childcare or dropping kids off or that sort of thing.
It definitely takes community, doesn't it?
Yes.
You touched on an important point there that I think a lot of people kind of gloss over in their lives just because life is busy, but being aware of what you need, and that changes as your family grows. And I know I've caught myself a couple times where I still think in the framework of like the toddler days when, okay, things are actually changing. And it can mean a couple things. One, I need to adapt my lifestyle and rethink my goals or reflect. But it's so easy amongst the chaos to kind of forget that. So, look for what you need and ask for what you need, or I think it's really important. 2 points.
Well, and people want to help if they know how, right? So that's the other thing, that is a learned skill, because I think also as women, and I don't mean to fully generalize because it's men too, but we believe we can do it all, and we want to do it all, and we don't want to be a burden or a pain to others. And that sometimes that can hold us back. And I think it's about reframing it, right? And recognizing that people want to help. Like, I know I really appreciate when someone says, hey, can you help me with X? And I'm like, oh yeah, I totally can. But I haven't been able to, but just because it was clearly articulated, right? Versus, we always say, hey, let me know if I can help with anything. But, you need a bit more context, and then we can do more to support each other.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. As a leader in a triple bottom line organization, what kind of things do you put in place to make sure that, the people that work for you feel that kind of support and flexibility?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think it is just that, we have a hybrid work model. We're a new team building a big organization. So we love, I think there's also there's value in being together and spending time in person, but there's also huge value. Like I think I mentioned, like I'm working remotely today, and I try to model that for the rest of the team too, right? Just let me know what you need. If you want to work remotely this week, or you need to leave early for X, or you need to pick up your kids, or you just need to sign off early to get whatever done, then just communicate it. Like, we're in this new era, which is phenomenal, where we can utilize technology and we can be wherever. But it is finding that balance between, that quality in-person time and that ability to work from anywhere. So I think it is just being that high level of communication and respecting the needs of your colleagues and coworkers, and making sure the work's getting done, right? It's more about outcomes than FaceTime. So
yeah, or counting the minutes kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I look at our team now, and because we're such a passion, purpose-driven organization, everyone is there for the same reasons, right? We want to build something that's going to have positive systemic change for a broad audience. And so, we're aligned on that. And so it is empowering. And I think people enjoy coming to work every day because of that. I think it's harder because not all jobs are like that. So I feel, we're lucky.
Now it's kind of a double-edged sword because, triple bottom line, impact, sustainable, and all these things that are kind of, they're beautiful, but they come with maybe they don't for you, but it may seem like it, in my mind, it would come with a bit of pressure, especially when it's a new organization, it's being built. How do you handle that kind of sense of building something big? And, the impact side of things is like, it drives, but it also over time, if we're not careful, can sometimes drain us too a little bit. How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a meaty topic. I think when we look at, the biggest challenges in our world right now, right? Climate action, climate change is like, we have to address that. We look at, the diversity of our population and how we have underestimated a lot of groups in the past, and the opportunities that it presents by all recognizing the strengths that everybody brings to the table, and creating environments where people can thrive. There's a huge opportunity and benefit there. And then the financial aspect. So it is complicated. I think the positive thing is there's been some advancement over the last couple of years. There is more mainstream recognition of not just the importance of this, but the benefits, right? So when we're looking at making investments, so we look at it. So I look at it from the organizational level. So we have an incredibly diverse team. We create very inclusive environments. And, it's also just so interesting to me because you mentioned being a woman leader. Well, our chief investment officer is also a woman. And we have just organically hired this diverse team. And as the nature of that, we've also are attracting a ton of incredible people from different backgrounds. And it just shows you that it can happen, right? It doesn't have to be hard. And then, so we look at just the values, embedding them as from an organization standpoint. And then when we look at the types of investments we're going to make, both in venture capital funds that are supporting early stage companies, as well as directly into companies that have a strong connection to British Columbia, we are looking at, are they, our 4 impact objectives, and we've defined these as driving climate action, elevating inclusive communities, advancing reconciliation, and innovating for the future. And then we have more definitions under that. And not all of the opportunities we look at are going to hit all 4 of those, but they need to hit at least one and demonstrate how they're driving that forward. And that's also in the innovation or technology or product that they're developing, but also in how they're building their team and culture and operating their business. So, it is multifaceted, and we have, we're developing some tools that are going to help us, track all of that, because it's the filter points. And then there's how do we over time really demonstrate and track that change and impact. But we're not alone in doing this work. And it's a very collaborative community. So we're excited, through some of our partnerships and working with others across Canada, as well as across the world. Actually, there's a lot of global initiatives. I feel optimistic that all of us working together are going to make this change.
I love it. It's so juicy. I just cannot wait to see what comes out of, in 5 years ahead, and being able to see the stories that come out of all the work that you're doing. I should mention that if people want to check out this website for InBC, it's nbcinvestment.ca. I got that right?
Yes,
nbcinvestment.ca. Oh, okay.
Yes, with more updates coming soon and changes to the website.
Oh, okay. So keep checking back, folks. Keep checking back. Okay. You had mentioned, I always ask, what are 5 words that describe you? And you said collaborator, which you just talked about, collaboration, a champion. You definitely are. I mean, it's so nice to be able to see someone like in your position, and you probably don't like hearing that, but just how you constantly do champion people online. I love it, and it feels good, and I like to do the same. And I just feel like it's makes the world a better place in our own little way. A catalyzer, parent and friend. What do you mean by catalyzer? Am I saying it right? Catalyzer?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and it is so hard when you have to describe words of yourself. Like I don't love talking about myself. I like talking about other people much more, or my work. But I think that's a word that other people have used to describe me many times. So yeah. I think it's about pushing and for change. And, I look back and, Trisha, you and I, as you said, we've known each other for a long time. Like even that, one of my early businesses just around bringing professional moms together, and because we needed space where we could be moms and professionals in the same place, right? And bring our kids and talk about business. And, that hadn't really existed before. It's such a simple thing. I mean, now it's so amazing. There's so many opportunities for that. But also, I was involved in an initiative called We for She, because you were at that as well, where it's just about raising awareness around the economic and social opportunities for having more inclusive workforces and having more women, advancing women in leadership and the importance of that. So I think when I look back, I've initiated a lot of things and tried to push the envelope, all not on my own, to be very clear, but along with amazing people. And so I think as a result of that, I sort of like to catalyze things and move things forward and push for different outcomes, I guess, and change. Mm-hmm. It also is hard, right? It's in some ways it can be more work and it's hard. And I'm also say that from a place of privilege versus some other people. So I just, if I can, look at things in different ways in order to improve things, then that's what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm. And so catalyzer, and I think a big part of that is innovation. I feel like you're just a natural innovator. You see there's need, you look kind of into the future of trends and needs, and so making big impact along the way, big impact.
Yeah. And we joke, I have to laugh, sorry, just as a funny aside, my husband's an engineer, and so he looks at everything very black and white, right? It's either this or that. And I definitely play in the gray area, which I think entrepreneurs like you and others do, right? Where there's infinite possibilities. And I think that's such an important mindset we need all types of people, but I just love like the opportunity to look at an issue or a challenge or an opportunity and just like, okay, surely if this isn't working, we've got to figure it out and find another way.
Mm-hmm. Well, question around that, because I run into the same thing. My husband is total black and white, and I'm the entrepreneur in the family. I'm the one riding the roller coaster. How do you manage that? Is there like any over the years, have you developed any tools that you can share for couples who are finding that they're in two different places? Because it actually can be in some cases challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's couples, it's also teams, right? It's across the board. I think it comes down to first acknowledging that, right? Because not everybody recognizes that. And when you get to a crossroads in a conversation and you're trying to figure out why, drilling into that, we have different strengths and perspectives, and recognizing and kind of calling those out. Mm-hmm. I know one of the things that we do with all my teams is the Strength Finder, which is a really simple tool, but just identifying and putting forward, okay, these are my 5 strengths. Those are your 5 strengths. Okay, we need to figure out that's why we're at this crossroads. And I think that's the key, right? Is try not to make it personal. Like, this isn't about you. This is like, we're trying to figure out how we can move this conversation forward and come to a solution. So I don't have a full solution on that, but otherwise than just identifying it and not placing blame and being like, okay, I'm not going to be satisfied with those 2 options. So we need to find a compromise and a different way. And maybe we can take part of your, that black part of your decision, and I'm going to sprinkle in a few other things here, and then come up with something.
Few shades of gray.
Few shades of gray.
That.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so if you were to go back 20 years, classic question, but I think it's actually a powerful one. If you could go back 20 years from now and see your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
The biggest learning now when I look back is what I sort of mentioned earlier, is just that you can use finance and money for good. And I feel like I certainly didn't waste time, but I really was taught that finance was to make more money for some people, and that didn't fit. And so I feel like if I had started or recognized that earlier in my career, I could have had a bigger impact earlier. But I also think things happen for a reason. And we all have winding paths more now than ever as far as our careers. And I think I am in the place that I need to be now. So I don't have any real regrets, but maybe that the world was looking ahead a bit more, right? That we have some major issues and we're in a pretty big mess right now. And if we had been able to recognize, and reallocating capital and money in different ways that were more beneficial to more people earlier on, we could be in a better position now. So,
isn't that true? Yeah, time is powerful. You mentioned earlier, you're kind of sharing your story about how you got to these different positions and transitioning from one angle of your career to another. And you said a very simple statement, but I think it's really important. You said that things I picked up along the way. And for anyone listening right now who is, working towards bigger things or wanting to transition to something, I think it's so important to recognize what you did in that opening was that as you move forward in different positions and jobs and opportunities, businesses, whatever it is, you're picking up tools. You're picking up puzzle pieces that will generally come together at different times. So kind of trusting that process. Because it does seem to me that the puzzle pieces you have picked up really are serving you well in what you're doing right now. Has it felt like it's come together in that way?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to look at it. Absolutely. This opportunity is not something that I was thinking of, again, for myself. And I had a couple of champions kind of tap me and say, you need to put your name forward for this. And when I looked back and through those conversations, I'm saying, yes, you have this finance experience that you picked up here. You've had this leadership experience. You've had this, X and Y. And yeah, it does feel like kind of hopefully not the culmination, because I hopefully have more time in my career, but this really interesting peak. And as you said, of, the different puzzle pieces coming together, and I would add confidence into that as well, because there are some conversations and meetings that I'm having now that every once in a while I pinch myself and go, really? Like, wow, this is amazing. Like 2 years ago, even, I couldn't have imagined having the language, the context or the confidence to participate in some of the meetings. And I think, that's a skill too, or a muscle that we evolve over time. And, it is, I think things have happened over the last many years that, you get into tricky situations you have to navigate your way out of, and you gain more strength in some of those muscles. And I feel really honored now that I can use those. And I think, the other thing looking back is, and being in the position I'm in now, there's this sort of, it can add a lot of pressure, but there's I have a little bit more, this is maybe not the right word, but influence. So I feel a great responsibility to use that in the right way. And I think, things happen for a reason. So I feel really, it's kind of come together at this, and, we're just starting. So there's a lot more work to do, but I'm really excited for where we're going and the impact we have and the team that we're building and the people we're going to be able to support. And I hope 5 years from now or 10 years from now, I'll be looking back and feeling even better about all of this.
No doubt. You mentioned great responsibility. Do you ever feel just heavy with that responsibility? Is it not a heavy load? What's it like for you?
I do feel heavy with responsibility, but I think the other thing that I've learned over the years, I used to keep that to myself. Like if I had concerns or if I didn't feel comfortable or confident in something, whether it was, preparing for a conversation or a meeting. But what I have done as a result of that is I've made sure I have amazing people around me that I can work with. I have an incredible leadership team where I am now, and we talk through a lot. The other thing I think you have to recognize, and I'm a verbal thinker, right? So that's something I know that I always tell the people I'm with, like, I'm a verbal thinker. So I'm just going to start talking now, and I'm not going to be able to, I may not come to a conclusion at the end, but this is part of my decision making, and you're along for the ride on this, right? So I'm also quite transparent. People know where I'm coming from and where I'm, what I'm thinking, and so whether that's sometimes working with a coach, and I know you have such great skill around that, or working with my board is amazing, or friends or work colleagues, because sometimes when you are a leader within an organization, it can be a bit lonely, right? And you feel like you can't talk through certain things. So I think it is making sure who you can confide in for different issues or challenges that you're dealing with. And recognizing what it is. Some people like to journal or write things down, right, as they problem solve. Some people like to talk it through, and so making sure you know what you need to problem solve, and utilizing that.
Oh, I love that. I always share with every entrepreneur or leader that I work with that if I could go back, that classic question, 20 years, I would have told myself to find community sooner. Find people who are slightly ahead of you, who can mentor you. That's why I love all the mentorship programs. And that's why I like to be part of them so much, because I just, if I had just opened myself up to that so much earlier as a mentee, then it would have been so powerful. So I think it's really good advice for people.
100%.
Connect
themselves. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Why make it harder than it needs to be? Come on, people. Let's make it easier. What kind of personal habits do you have that really support your own growth mindset?
Yeah, I mean, something that I need is nature. I feel very fortunate to live in British Columbia and close to the forest and close to the ocean. But I like, this is a bit cliche, but the forest bathing, that is what I need. So I know that, and I take advantage of that and make sure at least once or twice a week I'm out in the forest just going for a walk. Even with a friend, but that's what I need. I don't have to do it. I don't always do it on my own, but or just an early morning walk or a bit of a workout or something to just clear my head. Like movement is really important to me. I'm not an athlete per se, but just having that movement, because I otherwise there's so many distractions, and with our screens these days and phones, it's just the inbound is so much that I find it really helpful for me to have that head clearing time.
Mm-hmm. Is that true? What's your favorite book? Anything on your shelf right now that you just can't put down?
Oh, that's a good question. So many. I feel like I'm going to have to follow up with you. I should have anticipated that question.
There's no pressure.
I just read a fiction book, which is really good, Lessons in Chemistry, which was fascinating fiction about a woman, a chemist, and some of the challenges that she had. And it's a bit heartbreaking, but really good read. Very
Do you read more nonfiction or fiction?
I am trying to do more audiobooks for nonfiction, because I do like nonfiction, but I have a limited attention span these days. Yeah. Probably for the reasons we just talked about, all the inbound. So I'll just be honest about that. But I am in a book club that I've been in with 12 amazing women for 15 years now. And so we read a fiction book, usually sometimes it's a nonfiction, but most of the time it's a fiction book once a month. So I feel like that's my homework too. So it's Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. Anyways, it's a good read for a broad audience.
Oh, nice. I love that. And do you typically have like a bunch of books kind of go on at one time, or are you a one book person and you get through it and move on to the next? I think it says a lot about a person. I don't know what it says, but it says something.
Patricia, I think that can change, because I used to be a one book person and I would stick it out no matter what to get to finish it. And I think, again, as I get older, I'll give a book a good try, but if I'm not loving it or feeling like it's going somewhere by a certain point, I will let it go and I will move on to the next one. But I typically am reading one book at a time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That question just was impromptu, and I don't really know what we can say about that. But it's interesting.
What does that tell you about me?
I could not say. I love it. Okay, well, it's just awesome to have someone like yourself who you've been through a lot of different roles and experiences. And I think a lot of that is because you are courageous. You are willing to put yourself out there. You're willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations to expand and grow. So that's very inspiring. Just your story is inspiring for those reasons. If you could sit down with someone, who wants to make an impact, whether it's as an entrepreneur in an organization, and they're just kind of getting rolling and owning that voice and kind of starting that journey, what kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to that community piece, right? And just asking for help. You're not alone. People want to help. I think reaching out to some people that you think you could learn from or could build you up, and having quick phone conversation. And I find, again, that direct ask, hey, would you be open? This is what I'm thinking. Would you have 15 minutes for a phone call? Goes a long way, and to just building that confidence and exercising that muscle and giving you a bit of a lift to move on to the next thing.
I love that. It is so true. Community creates opportunity. It really does. Yes. Okay. Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time. One final question. Here's one that'll put you on the spot. And you probably have quite a few of these rolling around your head, but what is the best wisdom you've ever received? Or is there a certain mantra that you live by? Maybe a tattoo you got on your bicep? I don't know. But is there anything that you continually use as a guiding post for yourself?
I think one thing is about being curious. right? Be curious, and I apply that in different ways. So be curious about other people, right? And asking questions and learning and really understanding other people. But then also as opportunities come up, sometimes we're quick to judge or close a door, but be curious to explore a bit further and see what's possible.
That is very inspiring. Thank you. Well, you know what? You're a very generous human. You're generous with your energy. You're generous with your championing and your time. And I've always been so grateful that you're there to ask a question to. And again, generous in so many different ways. So thank you for being generous with your time here on Passion for Impact and joining us today. Really, really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Tricia. And thank you for sharing so many people's stories through your podcast and all the incredible work that you do as well.
I appreciate that. I love it. I love it.
Passion for Impact is sponsored by the Inspire Store. Need a gift that inspires? Inspire Store features exclusive ethically made goods and jewelry that embodies these 3 words. Yes, you can. Every purchase supports Food Banks Canada. Plus, you will receive Tricia Miltimore's popular personal development Shift Up e-course. Empowerment awaits you. Shop with impact at inspirestore.org.
If you love learning how to live and lead in a caring and fulfilling way, and you find this show inspiring, please share with your friends, rate and review this podcast. Passion for Impact, it's brought to you by Rock Your Leadership. We train leaders on how to grow success, drive change, and not burn out. Visit passionigniter.ca for more details. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Passion for Impact podcast. Visit passionigniter.ca/podcast to subscribe for episode notes, links, and special offers from show guests. Cast your vote. Make your impact. One socially conscious choice.